we were living on Miralax, and the pediatrician just kept saying, just keep giving it to him to make him regular. Just keep giving him Miralax. And I'm not kidding you, within a week of starting this diet and things, this was the beginning of last August of 2023, I haven't given him any Miralax, nothing.
Wow.
Zero.
Wow.
I mean, we went from literally living on it every single day to a week later, absolutely nothing. And he's having regular bowel movements every day, like doesn't complain about a stomach ache anymore.
Welcome to the Soaring Child podcast, where parents of children with ADHD learn tips and tricks to help their child soar at home, at school, and in life. We feature interviews with experts, medical professionals, and parents just like you who are learning how to reduce ADHD symptoms using food and other natural strategies. Because children with ADHD deserve to soar just like every other child. I'm Dana Kay, your host. Hello, parents. This is Dana Kay here with another edition of the Soaring Child podcast. Now, over 10 years ago now, I literally cannot believe it has been that long. I felt utterly isolated, as I face those sort of daily challenges of managing my son's ADHD symptoms. And those days were tough. They were filled with those meltdowns and those tantrums, that relentless trial and error. And I just had this deep sort of longing for someone to just guide us through all of that confusion. And listeners, I'm not sure where you are right now, where you find yourself today. Maybe you're in the same spot. I just want you to know that it doesn't have to be that way. And there is so much hope out there. Now, fast forward to today, as if you've been listening to this podcast for long enough, you will know that it is a totally different picture for my family. My son is thriving. His days and our days as a family are happy, are bright, and all of this is achieved without medication. And this sort of, it's profound sort of change in our lives just drives my passion to share these stories of transformation and these stories of the practical natural strategies that you can implement too. No family should feel that isolation at all. It's crucial to share the hope and the practical paths forward to ensure that no one has to navigate these waters alone, because you don't. And so today we're joined by a mum who has charted a similar course, and she has seen and witnessed remarkable changes in her child. Her story is not just inspiring, it really is a testament to what can be achieved with that dedication and that right support. So we're going to dive in. And if you're excited as I am, then you definitely want to stay tuned to meet our inspiring guest. So now it is time to welcome our very own Nicole to the Soaring Child. Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me.
You are more than welcome. I'm excited that you're here. And I, as I said, I just love to share stories for other families because it was really isolating for me. Is that how it was for you too?
Absolutely. It was, I hate to say so bad, but it was to where you don't even want to rewind your mind to think about it, right? It makes me, I'm already tearing up, talking about it because being a mom, you feel you want absolutely what's best for your child. And it kind of, my son's 8.5, almost 9 now, and kind of started in kindergarten, and it was the same, actually preschool teacher that my son had. She came up to me and said, I think your child might have ADHD, but, it's too young really to, for an official diagnosis, but she said, at the time I'm thinking, what's ADHD, right? I really didn't know the exact descriptions per se, or what the diagnosis was. And so fast forward, we just tried, behavior things at home and things like that, right? My husband and I did with him, and he's the youngest of 5. So he's already young. He's spoiled, all the things, right?
Wow.
But we tried the behavior things at home, kicked into first grade. He did fairly well in first grade. There were some ups and downs with that. Fast forward to second grade. And the first part of the year was pretty tough on him, behavior challenges, not being able to stay focused, stay in his seat, making noises all the time. And then those things would transpire here at home too. And so we pushed back against medicine for the longest time. And finally, my husband and I felt like we had no other choice. So we did the medicine route. And I remember specifically sitting in my pediatrician's office and, everything was great. He's going to do fine. He's going to do great. And I remember, giving him the medicine, and the first few days, it was like, he'd say, Mom, my body feels weird and things like that. So then it would be like teetering him on this medicine. And I would tell my husband, something doesn't feel right. It's that mom gut inside that something doesn't feel right. And then the side effects started, the no eating and the depression. I mean, at this time, he's 7 years old and he's saying things that absolutely no 7-year-old should say. And he is the most loving, outgoing, kind-hearted kiddo ever. And so I took him to a very prolific ADHD clinic after that. And they pretty much told me, Nicole, you're doing what you can, and we can prescribe you a different medicine, but it's 99% that, possibility that he's either going to have the same side effects with it or even worse. And I remember walking out of there. I mean, I would cry myself to sleep at night. Right. And I remember walking out of there just like, I felt hopeless. Yeah. And I just started like diving on the internet and just started Googling ADHD. And I am telling you, I've told everybody this, it was absolutely God that put you on my computer screen that night when I was Googling, because it has been a life changer. I mean, like, it has been an absolute night and day life changer for him, for our family dynamic, for relationships with him, with his friends, like all the way from A to Z. It's just been absolutely phenomenal.
Look, I think we can all relate to those like midnight Google searches where we're just Googling for anything, like absolutely anything that is going to help our family and help our children. Just talk to me a little bit more about like the challenges that you were facing at home. Like, what did that look like for you and your family?
It was tough, because you want to see your child succeed in all aspects of their life, right? Whether it's school, at home, in activities, things like that. And it felt like every family outing or every time, we sat down even for dinner, there was always something, right? And then it would be wound around. He thought he was a bad kid. And I'm like, you're not a bad kid. Like, you are a great kid, and it felt like a domino effect, if that makes sense. It was like one thing would just go to another. And we just got to a point where we had battled a lot of health stuff with him, with constipation, even as an infant. Like, I remember having to put prune juice in his bottle as an infant. And then fast forward, we were living, I know this, you're going to cringe. We were living on Miralax, And the pediatrician just kept saying, just keep giving it to him to make him regular. Just keep giving him Miralax. And I'm not kidding you, within a week of starting this diet and things, this was the beginning of last August of 2023, I haven't given him any Miralax, nothing, zero.
Wow.
I mean, we went from literally living on it every single day to a week later, absolutely nothing. And he's having regular bowel movements every day, like doesn't complain about a stomach ache anymore. All the things, attitude.
How often was he going before you started the Miralax? Like, how often was he going? Talk to me a bit about it, the constipation, because I can tell you
it was bad. It was bad.
There are so many families out there that think that constipation are normal, and it's no fault of their own. The doctors say, don't worry, it's normal, just take Miralax. But it's not normal. It is a sign that something else is going on. And just talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm like you. If the pediatrician said Miralax is okay, I'm going to give him Miralax. I'm a mom, and you take your child to a doctor and they say, keep giving him Miralax. And so that's what I was doing. And then as I started doing more and more research about gut health, and how it interacts with the brain, I'm blown away. I'm teaching people now, right? Even my children's teachers and people at the school and things are like, Nicole, I feel like you're a book of knowledge now that you could really teach us something, because, it's kind of the norm thing to throw a medication. And some kids do need to be medicated. Absolutely. But I'm just telling you from my personal experience with my child and seeing the side effects that he experienced at such a young age. My husband and I said that it wasn't worth to see our child in that, in that space and in that headspace at such a young age. I mean, we were even to the point where I was going to pull him to homeschool. I mean, travel a lot for our business. I just was going to pull him because it just, it got to a point where it was just so tough. And the constipation into things, like it would be so bad that when he finally did go, it would be days. If I didn't give him Miralax, it would be days. And then he wouldn't go at school and and I have to go pick him up from school or things like that. And so it would just, like I said, it was like a domino effect that the bad moods, we all know if we have a stomach ache or we're not feeling good and we can't go to the bathroom, we're grumpy too, right? Like we don't feel good. Yeah. Right. Like our bodies just don't feel good and we're not going to be able to be the happy-go-lucky people that we are. Right. And so that's what was going on with him. And I'm not kidding you. Like I said, within a week of stopping, especially the gluten, dairy, and soy, within a week of stopping those and starting the supplement program and things, he was going on a regular basis and not complaining of stomach aches anymore and not going so much, you know what I mean? Like not going so much that it was bad, but like this, like on a regular schedule,
he was having normal bowel movements.
Right. And he's always like, Mom, would you quit asking me if I went to the bathroom or not today? And I'm like, but it's, and now he knows how important that is. Right. Because he knows how he feels too when he is going. So
talk to me about, once you joined, working with us, what sort of other strategy, what strategies did you put in place to help with that constipation? So, you've said that, you went gluten, dairy, and soy free. What else?
Okay, so we went through the testing, testing kits, that you send out, and also found out that he was majorly sensitive to rice as well. Well, we all know gluten-free flours are a lot of rice. So Mom went to work on, once again, my late night Google searches of different flours and everything. And I will say prior to starting the diet, my little guy was very much, he was a great eater, but more meat, bread, not a junk food eater, so that part was easy for us because.
So you started with a decent base.
Correct. Yes. We're hunters where we harvest and we consume what we harvest. So we eat a lot of wild game meat, which is good too, right? We don't eat out a ton. So it just is one of those things where love to cook. I cook everything from scratch for the most part. So, and I have huge gardens in the summertime. I can all my spaghetti sauce, tomato sauces, everything. Wow. And that's what we live on all year long. And so that made it easy in that respect, right? That we didn't have to cut out the dairies and all, or sorry, not the dairies, but the dyes and the artificial flavoring and things.
Because it was already gone.
Well, amazing though, what I thought was healthy, and then start looking at nutritional, and your ingredients in it. And you're like, okay, well, I guess that wasn't healthy after all, as you start ingredient label reading, as I say it. And, I was very overwhelmed at first. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for those that haven't started the program, but I am here to tell you, like, I would do it a million times over again. And I wish I would have found it, 4 years ago, right? When the symptoms started and things. Like, I wish I would have known about the program. So like, I make it my endeavor now to share it with as many people as possible, because it may seem impossible or very difficult at the front end, but the results of what can happen and what can come for you and for your child and your family, it's an absolute no-brainer.
Oh, that's amazing. And you've done all this hard work for your son. Now, you mentioned that you did functional lab testing and also that targeted supplementation. I wonder, just for the listeners, if you could just share a little bit more about how we sort of determine which supplements were the right fit for your child's specific needs? What was sort of identified in those lab tests? If you can remember that far back.
Oh, yeah. All that part is very vivid, right? Because once again, it seems very overwhelming to do, but it really isn't. Now that we've been through it, I thought all those sleepless nights and all the worrying, even like for the blood testing, I'm on your Facebook group page, right? And I see a lot of parents that comment or ask, like, how do you do the finger prick? I waited like probably, Dana, like a month and a half after I got the blood kit because I had such anxiety about doing this to my child. And so, but so you did the testing, we got the results. We ended up finding out, like I said, that he was sensitive to rice. He was sensitive to lemon, the things that you would never know. Right. And so your team did an amazing job at coming up with those supplements to fill his gaps, that he was having in his own nutritional gaps in his body. And the one-on-one coaching calls and things like that. Like, I can't tell you how much that helped me and helped ease my mind in the explanation of all that, because I really knew, exactly how to dive into that supplement schedule with him. He's not a pill swallower yet. So we do a little bit of applesauce. It's funny because he's not an applesauce either, but I'm like, okay, it's either going to be dairy-free yogurt or applesauce. So pick. And he picked applesauce. And
does he like pear? Because you can also do pear sauce.
Okay, that's a good idea. He does like pear. I could do that, but I just buy a thing of organic applesauce. But I put parchment paper on a pan, and I just put dollops on, and I put it in my freezer and freeze them, and then put them in a Ziploc baggie, and I'll pop a couple dollops of applesauce in one of my glass Pyrex dishes to keep in the fridge for a few days for supplements.
There you go. What a great tip.
Yeah. And I break open all the capsules, mix it up and give it to him. And, he just knows that's what he does. Like, it's gotten to the point where after we cut out everything that, we said we were going to and all that, like, he doesn't even care to really go back and eat any of that now, because he knows how good his body feels now versus what it did at this point in time last year.
And isn't that the best feeling as a parent?
Yes.
But also like the fact that he can now own that because he feels better.
Right. I mean, I can't say that at almost, at 8.5 years old, I would have said, no, if that's going to make my, like an ice cream cone, from Dairy Queen or something, right? Let's just use that as an example. I can't say that I would have said, oh man, I really want that ice cream cone. He's like, nope, if it's not on my protocol, then I'm not going to eat it, Mom. And I'm like, okay. Awesome. So he just,
maybe we need to get him to come onto the podcast to share.
He's good. He'll talk your ear off. So
I love it.
Yes.
So, you talked about obviously the challenge of taking pills. Were there sort of any other challenges that you faced when you were sort of implementing all of these changes, and how did you overcome them?
I think the number one thing is for people traveling, or if your kids are going to a friend's house or things like that, I would just, if I knew in advance, I would just make extra food, put them in, in containers. And I always say I'm the lady that carries food. I'm the one in the airport that always has the cooler going through security. Like, I've got it down pat of what I can and can't take, right? And that's just me. That's how I am, right? Like, I cook everything, and he goes to a friend's house. I show up with a bag of food. So, their mom or dad don't have to worry about what they're going to feed my child while they're there. Right. Yeah. I think that's number one thing is just, that was kind of a little tricky on my end, right. To learn, especially with the rice, being sensitivity to him. Wasn't just going and buying gluten-free snacks. Yeah. I will say a lot of these companies are jumping on board now of grain-free as well. So I'm very thankful for that. But I just had to make a lot of stuff homemade. Yeah. And I would pre-make a lot of stuff and freeze it and, get it out as we needed to too, if we were traveling or things like that. I think maybe that's one of the major things of people is that they're scared of changing their diet, or that their kids, oh my gosh, my kid's so picky. Trust me, I was there. My child was very picky, like very, very picky. And I'm not saying that he isn't as picky now, but it's amazing what this has done to open his palate as well. Like, he'll try new things, right? Like let's just say this, your one pan fajitas that you posted just not too long ago. I tried that 2 nights ago, and he's like, these are amazing. Awesome. And so, like, I had never done it before because he would have never eaten it. But a couple nights ago, he did, and he loved it. So I'm
That's
like,
amazing. And
or,
look, it's really common to have a picky eater, especially with, ADHD and all of that inflammation that's going on in the body. But it is really, really amazing to watch that palate open up. And, when I've got someone coming into the program and they've got a picky eater, and I'm like, don't worry, trust me, their palate.
That was me.
Open up. So I'm glad that you have confirmed that has started to happen, which is amazing. Now, can you just share with listeners, when did you start to see changes in your child, and how have things improved for you and for him and for your whole family?
So I will say we also, are doing cognitive behavior therapy.
Yep.
On top of this. I feel his biggest struggle in life right now is learning a new task, if that makes sense. So like at school right now, he has problems with if they're learning a new concept in math. He looks at the mountain instead of looking at the steps to get up that mountain, right? In order to learn that task. So I feel like the cognitive behavior therapy has really helped with that as well. But, like I said, within a week of starting this supplement schedule and really, cutting out his foods and things, because we just cut cold turkey. Yeah. I just said, this is, and it was hard for him, because he was used to having his waffles, and I said, well, we're just going to have to make them a different way. Well, then he didn't like them, because mom couldn't make them the way that he would, so it was just pivoting and shifting, right? People laugh now, but my child eats spaghetti almost every day for breakfast. Yes, he does. But, and I mix a scoop of the unflavored bone broth, Paleo Valley bone broth in with the sauce, and he has chickpea noodles, and that's what he eats for breakfast. So that is in venison, and ground venison. We just shifted, and like I said, now it's like it's nothing. It felt like for mom and dad to change our, the eating schedules and things, it felt like a lot. But just within a week of doing that, he was going to the bathroom on a more regular basis. Even the fact of when it was time to, let's just say, get in the bath at night, it used to be no. And it was almost like that automatic response. It was almost like he couldn't hold that in. Does that make sense? Like he couldn't regulate. And now it's like, I always felt like we were walking on eggshells then, and I don't feel that anymore. Yeah. Like it's amazing what just his body is able to absorb and regulate his emotions and all of the things now versus prior to that. And this was prior to doing the cognitive behavior therapy, all of that. This was just primarily because of reducing that inflammation in his system, that he just is just a totally different kid.
And it's so beautiful, and it's so beautiful to watch. And I think that I remember going through it with my son, and one of the hardest things I think, especially with kids with ADHD, is that emotional dysregulation, that defiance, and that is the thing that makes you feel like you're walking on eggshells. But it's clearly just exactly what happened to you, exactly what happened to me. Within a few weeks of me doing this with my son, he was a completely different child. And you think to yourself, I want listeners out there to know, and I've talked about inflammation before, but that meltdown, that tantrum, that automatic response, that's not normal. No. We think it's normal. We accept it as being normal, but it is a warning sign that something else is going on in the body. And I think that, what you've done for him and the changes that you've made, you've definitely reaped the benefits. So, kudos to you. So do you sort of see this approach, the diet, the supplementation as a long-term strategy in your son's ADHD management plan?
Yes, we don't plan on going, because he, it's funny because he asks, he's like, well, when am I going to get to eat that again? And I said, well, here's the deal, because this was in the very beginning. Yeah. He's like, well, how long is this? And okay, how many more months do we have to do this type of thing? And now he doesn't even ask anymore. because he just knows, right? Like we've continued on with the supplements that you've recommended after his initial protocol was done. Yep. We worked our way all the way through those. And I will tell you, we've had no constipation, no any of that. And that's after the supplement protocol. We've been through that almost 2 months now. We've been done with our original protocol of supplements that you gave us. And he's still on the maintenance supplements that you recommend and things. And he's been doing phenomenal on that, as far as behavior stuff goes and bathroom and things like that. I mean, let's be honest, every kid is different, right? And, the kind of the thing, a lot of people, parents, because I feel like ADHD is becoming more prevalent, more as far as it's a common conversation, right? Like people, like I said, I didn't really know what it was a few years ago when it was first brought to me. I knew it existed. I knew a little bit about it, but I'd never had to deal with it. Now fast forward, I kind of look at myself and think, I probably have a little bit of that too. So, I mean, that's the number one thing that a lot of people tell me is, well, Nicole, all people have some sort of form of ADD or ADHD. And I said, well, either way, this program has helped my child. Yeah. And I have said a million times, and I'll keep saying it, that any way I can help and get this, my story and my son's story, our family story out there to others that are on the fence of doing this program or thinking there's no way my kid would ever do it. My kid's too picky of an eater, or we have too busy of a schedule, or, all the excuses. It's like nothing's more important. Nothing is more important than making sure that you're putting your best foot forward for your child and giving them a chance at life, a chance without medication, a chance with no side effects, and a chance to really just live, and that's really essentially what we have been able to do is just live. Yeah. Like before, like I said, it was eggshells in my house. Sometimes you'd never know what mood that they would wake up in or what mood they'd be in, on different times of the day and things, or if you asked them to do something, you just would never know what sort of response you might get. Like you said, you tell them no at a grocery store for something that they want or whatever, and that's not normal. It's not. And I mean, it's amazing the difference. Like I said, just in 6 months, we started August of last year, but just a week with the bathroom thing. But I mean, just in this 6-month period from August to the beginning of January was a life-changing transformation for our family.
Oh, that's absolutely it just warms my heart so much. I want to just quickly bring up something that you said. You said that even if you think that you're so busy, you can do this. Nicole, can you share, you've got 5 kids, hats off to you. That's amazing. I've got 2 boys and I was like, no, not having any more. So that in itself, is you are busy, but you also run your own business, don't you?
Yes. Yep. So my husband and I have a hunting television show and YouTube channel. So we travel all over the world. So That being said, my parents watch my little guy when we're traveling some, or he travels with us. But I will say, Dana, for many years, we would be like, oh, we can't take him because of everything we were dealing with. And now, once again, like I said, I'm the food bag lady at the airport. I just have it down. We're going to Africa this summer for a few weeks and taking him. We're going to Alaska for a couple of weeks and taking him. It has been an absolute transformation for our family to be able to just up and go and be able to, it just has made our family dynamic so much happier. It doesn't matter how, once again, how busy you are, this can fit into any person's schedule. And I mean, it was some teaching because, like I said, when my mom and dad had them, teaching on the supplements, I have a supplement board, on my refrigerator that was all, but it was so easy and it just flowed so well. And I think, in my little guy, a lot of kids with ADHD, they thrive on routine, right? And so I think that's another thing is if you're busy, your kids are used to being busy, right? Your kids are used to being able to, pivot and do whatever you're doing in your family. So adding this in, to me, it's okay, well, if you're going to serve, let's say chicken nuggets for dinner, let's think ahead of time a little bit, make your own chicken nuggets and freeze a ton. That's what I do, right? Freeze a ton. And then we'll throw them on and that's what you can cook on the busy nights. Or, it does, I will say, take a little bit of planning ahead. Yep. in that respects. But like the
once
payoff
it becomes your total payoff, and once it becomes your normal, it becomes easy. And that's one thing that I remind, all the families of. Nicole, I'm thinking about you being the bag lady at the airport. You mentioned that you had a YouTube channel. What's the name of your YouTube channel?
It's called Driven Hunter.
Driven
It's
Hunter.
got a lot of our hunts, and I do a bunch of cooking stuff. I'm going to be doing more cooking stuff. I mean, I have huge gardens, like I said, huge gardens where I make my own spaghetti sauces and pizza sauces and all the things. So, it's very much field to table. So, but that's, kind of how I was born and raised, and knowing the importance of what is in your food, and this program has really opened that up for me, because I thought I was feeding my child healthy food, if that makes sense, right? Until I really dove in and started reading product labels and things like that, and really learning about the side effects of some of these different foods. And obviously, like I said, everyone's different, right, with how they handle those things. But when we started cutting those foods out and started your supplement, your program, it's just been an absolute lifesaver.
That's amazing. Now, as we finish up today, can you just share, one piece of advice that you would give other families considering sort of this more natural approach, or considering supplementation or functional lab testing as part of their ADHD management approach?
Right. So, it's funny because since, of course, all of my son's friends, moms, parents all know that we're on this program now. Yeah. So, it's kind of like some of them are like, oh, we started cutting out some gluten, or we started cutting out some dairy, or we started, all these different things. And they're like, it's not as hard as we thought, right? Like it really isn't. And, I would just recommend surrounding yourself with people that support you, right? When I first found your program, I was doing a ton of, research and things. And it was just like I said, I felt like it was like a ray of light from God saying, this is what you need to do, Nicole. And, it was a small investment in the front end, but if I can make that small investment for my child to change the rest of his life, like, why wouldn't you as a parent? And I just remember, any advice that I can give to a parent is just do it. Honestly, if I could get back all the sleepless nights, the nights of crying myself to sleep, like, how can I help my child? How can I, just really put my best foot forward for him? I can't. So now I want to help other families, and being able to know, like, this program has absolutely been a life-changing moment for him, for us, for our family. Like, we are able to experience and do things as a family now and enjoy them. And be able to really thrive in life, because really that is what we're doing. That's what our family's doing.
Yeah. And live. And that's what you said earlier, live and thrive. And that's what it's about. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today, and really sharing. I felt your heart, your heartfelt experience. I think your story just really just helps this conversation. It helps give hope to families, and shows that there are these real outcomes from this natural approach, from eating this way, from looking at what's going on in the body, using that targeted supplementation to sort of manage those ADHD symptoms. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Listeners, we hope that this episode has provided you with that encouragement, but also that actionable information for your own paths. Now, as I always ask, either at the beginning or the end of the podcast, if you found today's conversation helpful, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform, because it does really help us reach more and more families who could extremely benefit from these discussions. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of The Soaring Child. I'm Dana Kate, your ADHD health practitioner. Keep on thriving. Thank you for listening to the Soaring Child podcast today. To learn more about how to help your child with ADHD soar using natural strategies, visit our website at adhdthriveinstitute.com and follow us on social media at ADHD Thrive Institute.